Ian Casselberry, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me back, James.
Yeah, anytime. So, who's a worse owner in pro sports than Daniel Snyder?
Oh, man. James Dolan, maybe?
Dolan's pretty bad.
Yeah.
He's up there. Certainly in the top 5.
Absolutely.
Hearing terrible things about Bidwell.
Oh, yeah. And they got a whole scandal going on. Is it John Fisher who owns the Oakland Athletics? That might be less his fault than the city of Oakland or the Alameda County, which is certainly what he's saying. But that team's in a total shambles right now.
Well,
they got a possum crawling around in the broadcast booth.
And isn't it the whole state of California that won't build stadiums? They won't fund them?
Yeah. That must be. I don't know. California not interested in footing the bill for billionaire owners.
Which is understandable.
I think so. How many? How many do they need? It's too bad Oakland's going to lose another team. You know, they lost the Warriors to San Francisco. Now they're going to lose. Oh, they lost the Raiders, of course, to Las Vegas. And it sounds like the A's are going to follow them to Vegas.
Or Salt Lake City, maybe.
Salt Lake City. That was interesting, huh? Them as a possible expand. Because you always hear the same cities when expansion or relocation comes up, right? Portland. Nashville has a big group ready. I know Raleigh and Charlotte for a long time. Mm-hmm. Austin Texas has been in the bidding, but Salt Lake City, that's a good one. That's a new one. I have to read more up on that, I have to admit, but I think I like that. Whatever the feelings are about Salt Lake City, that's a region that isn't really represented in Major League Baseball. It would be a natural rival with the Mariners, perhaps.
Sure,
that's a big city.
Or the Rockies,
maybe. Yeah, maybe they deserve more than just the Utah Jazz. There, that's very intriguing. I don't know how I feel about baseball expanding in general. I know that's kind of another topic, but it's always the worry that there's not enough pitching, but there probably is enough pitching now, especially with the way teams run their pitching staffs. You don't have starters going, they're not going to throw 200 innings a season anymore. Maybe they go 5-6 innings. You build up these big bullpens. So I think you can find enough guys who can throw 100 miles an hour for one inning to build up. I assume it's 2 more teams. But yeah, Salt Lake City, that is really intriguing.
All right. Before we go back to the Commanders, I want to follow this down this baseball rabbit hole. So, of the cities you've heard about this idea of possible expansions, for those who don't know, Salt Lake City, Gail Benson, not Gail Benson. No, that was the New Orleans Saints. Gail Miller, the widow of Larry Miller, who owned the Utah Jazz, is heading a group with a couple former baseball players who are from the Utah area to hopefully bring Major League Baseball to Salt Lake City. And among a myriad of other rumors about expansions and of course moving, as you mentioned earlier, Ian, that Oakland's been a long believed to move at some point. It's something that Billy Beane has talked about forever. I think he's left the franchise at this point, but he talked about this like 15 years ago. Like it's been a long process of whether we get an actual stadium somewhere in California or are we going to actually get the hell out of here?
It sounds like, there have been 2 to 3 stadium initiatives in the Bay Area that I can think of. The latest was, I think it's called the Howard Terminal. Mm-hmm. Out on the bay there, and that sounded like it was ready to go until, like you said, the state of California and the people aren't interested in paying for it. So without that, they, Las Vegas. I'm sure Major League Baseball wants to be in Las Vegas. The A's would be a prime prime candidate. And they've had, that stadium has just been a joke throughout the game for so long. I mean, they had raw sewage building up because the pipes are flooded. They've had dead mice in the vending machines.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this possum in the broadcast booth. There are seats that are literally unfit to be, like, they can't be used. They have to be fixed, or they're either unusable, or they have to be stuck together with duct tape. There's cracks everywhere. I mean, at some point, it has to be a public safety issue, right? It's certainly public health if you have sewage coming out into the stadium. But I think Oakland, and Rob Manfred won't come right out and say it probably, but I think he wants his new shiny toy. I think he wants the sport to be in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has proven it can be a sports town now, or a professional sports town with the Raiders. LeBron's talked about he wants to be part of an NBA team there someday. So it's going to happen. So if it's not the A's, would you rather a team relocate there, or would you rather give them an expansion franchise? I think you take care of two problems if you move the A's to Las Vegas.
And then expand to 2 other cities.
Yeah, because then you get everything, right? Because then you still get those 2 cities.
And a massive expansion fee for both.
Massive expansion fee. You get another thing about Salt Lake City. I don't know what the TV market situation is. That's such a big deal in baseball. I don't know if the Mariners are part of that, or the Rockies even have that TV market. But I think that's something that could be negotiated if, it's not like a situation like the Nationals and the Orioles sharing the same area, or Iowa having rights to 5 different teams. So
sure,
5 different teams are blacked out. I don't think you'd face those same issues. Someday we might have to devote a whole segment to the blackout issue in Major League Baseball, and what a debacle that is.
It's one of the strangest arguments that any pro sports has made against its fans.
It seems deliberately, almost punitively anti-fan. Absolutely. Again, I brought up Iowa, to have 5 teams that you can't, why bother buying MLB TV unless you're a fan of, like, the Dodgers or
absolutely
the Yankees. You can't see the nearby teams. And I know there are other regions like that too. Maybe the first step of that is this, with Bally's being in a lot of trouble and having trouble, or refusing to pay teams like the Reds and the Padres and the Indians and the D-backs. And if Major League Baseball takes over the broadcast rights to those teams, and ends up streaming those teams, maybe that is the first step to ending, or at least somehow altering these blackout restrictions.
Yeah, I think blackout restrictions overall in sports should probably go away completely, especially with so much money, with these leagues depending so much on the money from these networks in order to prosper. I think it's unfair to us all across the board. I also find as a great example. I live in Western New York. For those of you who probably heard this before, but I watched the Buffalo Sabres play, and I can't watch them on streaming, even though they are. If you're out of market, you can watch them on streaming. I can't watch them on ESPN Plus at all because we're blacked out.
Are they a Bally's team too, or no?
They're not a Bally's team. They're an MSG team.
Oh, okay. But
which is even worse because they want to charge us $30 a month.
Ugh. Yeah, no, that's also ridiculous. I mean,
yes.
I think the Bally's is charging what? I think $20. The MSG is charging $30. Wow. Yeah,
and I understand Nesson in Boston is going in the $30 a month range as well.
Oh man, that part of me thinks that the Boston fans will pay that, but $30.
Yeah, it's excessive.
I know. Do you say like, well, baseball? You're talking about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Bruins and Celtics. Well, I don't know. Are they on NESN?
The Celtics are not.
Oh, right. They're on
the NBC Sports
NBC
Network.
Boston. That's right.
But I do believe the Bruins are. Obviously, the Sox are.
That's terrible. Yeah, but how do you? Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder. I mean, was cable that bad? I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who is very strongly considering cutting the cord, and I don't. I mean, I watch. My local baseball teams are the Atlanta Braves and, strangely, the Cincinnati Reds in Western North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah. It's strange.
Reds?
I don't get I have to. I cannot watch the Reds on MLB TV. They are on Bally's Southeast or something like that, or Bally's South.
But aren't the Orioles and the Nationals closer?
They are, but I don't know. I don't know why. Because of what is their network? That network is
well, there's the Maryland. Yeah. Maryland has
Masson.
one, and Masson, and I'm assuming I'm guessing the Nats are on a different one. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember, because that was a big issue for a long time, is that they were on Masson, the Nats, but they weren't, despite being so much more successful a team, they weren't getting that much money, because that was the arrangement that the Nats made when they moved into that market. And Peter Angelos, the Orioles owner, just said, that was the big holdup toward the Nats moving there, I think. So the Nats were forced to take this punitive offer, or this rights deal, which they get very little money. Yeah, you're right. Though I should be in the Orioles and Nats market as well. Maybe just because we don't get Masson on our cable system. But anyway, I do wonder. I wonder if having cable was so bad. But again, I say that knowing that people who get YouTube TV or Hulu are probably saving half or paying half of what they did with cable, depending on what cable package you get.
Yeah, depending on what package you had. I guess I'm mixed on it. I've just recently cut the cord.
Oh, okay.
When we moved into this place from my old apartment, I had a deal where I got super high speed internet and cable. So I had cable, and it's been difficult at moments. Sometimes I miss my sports center. And working around.
That's what I wonder. Would I miss? I don't know. I mean, I've been that cable watcher where I'm just flipping around, and for some reason I think this really got worse with COVID. But like I'm always on TNT or TBS or FX, like what Marvel movie is on tonight, even though I've seen them however many times. So I guess I won't entirely get that channel surfing if I cut the cord, but yeah, I think it's channel
surfing of a different type.
Yeah. Is it? Do you like sign on to Netflix or HBO Max, and that's your surfing? Like what?
Essentially, yeah. Or like I have the Disney bundle.
Okay. Yep.
So I'll tune into Hulu, and Hulu's hooked up into ESPN Plus and all the Hulu. So I'm flipping through what games are being live streamed on ESPN Plus there, plus
except
movies, documentaries, all that. Then you have things like Pluto TV.
Oh yeah,
where you are literally just going through channels, like a zillion channels, and And then you have, of course, Netflix and HBO Max, which are, similar in that you are just going through what documentary do you want to watch?
Right.
What show do you want to rewatch? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm mostly an HBO Max and Disney Plus watcher right now. Maybe that'll change a little bit depending on the time of year and whatnot. But yeah, for sports fans, cable still seems like the way to go.
It's a good deal.
Yeah. But I mean, I certainly wouldn't begrudge anybody who, wants to pay $75 instead of $200.
Well, the problem with it was that it was a good deal for us as sports fans, but it was a bad deal for everybody else.
Yeah.
The fact that the average cable user is spending $9 a month on ESPN, even though on its highest rated night, it'll get non-football night. It'll get maybe 1 million viewers.
Yeah.
Which is that's patently unfair.
Yeah. I mean, the people who don't watch sports, like you're paying, like you said, they're paying for ESPN, they're paying for MLB Network, NFL Network, etc. Sure. The regional sports networks, and I mean that's where these networks get their money from. That's where they can get so many billions from. That they can't get the same rights fees or service fees, carriage fees from streaming that they can from cable. Which you're seeing, and that's going to be a problem with, like we talked about with Major League Baseball and some of these teams. If, say, the Reds decide they don't want to be in Bally's anymore, and Major League Baseball takes that over, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but what if the Reds are getting $50 million a year from Bally's, and then where does that money come from? They're not going to get $50 million from people signing up for streaming.
Yep, not at all.
So, I mean, does that create even more of a disparity between, say, the Yankees and the A's or the Reds? It certainly could.
Quite likely. And I expect it. And I think it'll probably lead eventually to labor trouble.
Yeah. Yep.
And another hard strike.
Which,
at least down the line.
Man, oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I know baseball just got done with another labor stoppage. That's the last thing people want to hear. Yeah.
Well, to pivot to the Redskins, I can't stop calling them the Redskins. It's just I can't stop. The Redskins / Commanders.
You're commandeering this discussion to another topic?
Oh, yeah. I'm commandeering. It's hail to the Commanders.
Oh. Do you like that name, by the way?
It's terrible. It's just too much. It's too long a word, I think.
Yeah, it's too long a word. It's like an XFL name or a video game name. I mean, what does it really say? Does it? I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about Redskins, but
you also can't shorten it.
Right.
You
can't. What are you going to call them? The commies?
That doesn't work.
The comms? Yeah.
I get wanting to rebrand, with all the controversy. I understand. But I think that was just a poor choice. And that speaks to why Snyder was probably the worst owner in sports. And, well, he still is.
Still is for at least, however many months, maybe. So it sounds like this is going to happen.
Do you believe it?
I guess not until it actually happens. I guess I'm in that frame of mind. But, you got the Washington Post running these articles saying, the Josh Harris ownership group seems to have just about everything in line. They got to take care of a couple of things as far as where their revenues are coming from, or do they have? I mean, there's all these sorts of regulations, like there has to no more than 25 people can be in an ownership group, or the majority owner has to have at least 30%, I think, controlling interest. I might be getting those mixed up, but
I think more than that in the NFL, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
In the NBA, it's 30%.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
I think both your rules are both NBA rules, and in the NFL, they like having one star, one new member of the club.
Yeah. Yep.
They're pretty strict about it. In the NBA, there's you usually have a zillion people who own a small percentage of each team, and you have a top dog who sort of has at least 30%, who's the majority owner.
Okay. Now, apparently, Josh Harris, he also owns the Sixers and the New Jersey Devils.
Yes.
Apparently, that's not a problem.
Should it be?
No, I don't see why, especially if they're not in the same city. I mean, Ted Leonsis could have bought the Commanders, right? And he owns the Capitals and the Wizards. So I mean, I'm sure that's a bridge the NFL was willing to cross. What do you think? Do you think multi-team ownership should be allowed?
I've been a fandom that has a multi-team owner.
That's right. That's right.
Terry Pegula owns the Sabres and Bills. Part of me doesn't like it. Like I think Mike Ilitch was the perfect example of this in Detroit, where he would pour his money into the Detroit Red Wings and every once in a while look at the Tigers.
And then it switched.
Yeah. So like, I think you end up with a level of favoritism. I think in some level in the Buffalo world, Terry Pegula was believed to be more of a Sabres fan than a Bills fan, but the Bills have had better management over the last half decade, at least, than the Sabres have. And of course, it's more of a moneymaker because it's football instead of hockey.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Detroit's facing something similar right now. I mean, Mike Ilitch passing away and his son taking over ownership of the Red Wings and Tigers, and he doesn't appear to be interested in spending money on either team, really. The Red Wings had a little bit of a spending spree in free agency, but they also just almost had a fire sale at the trade deadline. So what happens when you're not spending money on either one? That further underlines the problem that you were mentioning.
My inclination is to have one very interested owner. So the NFL model, where you have to have a majority owner, where it's one person or a couple. It can't be a company like Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, who owns the Maple Leafs and the Toronto Raptors.
Right. In fact, I think the NFL doesn't like that or doesn't want that. Right?
Yeah, they don't allow it.
They don't allow it.
Yeah, it's always a person. So they wouldn't allow Walmart to buy the Broncos. They just would allow a couple guys from Walmart to buy the Broncos.
Yeah.
And also on the multi-team ownership, another great example of this was the Seahawks and the Trailblazers, who are both owned by Paul Allen.
Oh, Paul Allen owned both, right?
Yeah, and Paul Allen poured money into the Trailblazers for a long time. I can't claim he was a bad owner. I mean, he did when he took over the team. Both teams did turn around for the most part. I mean, the Seahawks made the Super Bowl a few times, both with Mike Holmgren and then later Pete Carroll. And the Trailblazers were good around the turn of the century and have been just okay since.
Yeah, they've been
Is
one
that
of those. What are the 40? They're in that NBA purgatory where they make the playoffs, but aren't really a championship contender. I mean, they're certainly not what they were. What in the early '90s, mid '90s, with the Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Jerome Kersey teams.
sure?
Yeah,
Those are great teams too. Oh, and Clyde, I think is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. Honestly,
absolutely.
he was in the league at the wrong time.
Yeah, and then Michael Jordan, made sure he stayed that way.
Without a doubt.
In what was that, the 93 finals? 94?
92?
92? Okay.
I think 92. Because 91 was the Lakers and Bulls.
That's right. Okay.
That was the second one. And then of course it was Barkley versus Jordan in his third title win.
That was okay. Yeah, all right, that sounds right.
Yeah.
People listening to this, is Drexler as good as Jordan, and Jordan heard all that, and as everybody who watched The Last Dance knows, he took that personally.
Of course.
And and you have the classic Jordan running down the court shrugging.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
that was
right.
the shrug.
Drexler, I think there was a little bit of a reminder of that during the NCAA tournament this year, that just how good those Houston teams were, and they run highlights of that amazing dunk Drexler had against oh gosh, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Almost died there.
Oh no. James is recovering, folks, if you don't know.
Absolutely. I've had a terrible like head cold.
Oof.
And it's just been finally over the last 2 days, my lungs feel like lighter.
Oh man, that's awful.
And I'm only coughing small jags here or there.
Ugh. You have allergies too, or no?
Oh yeah, terrible allergies.
There you go.
Pollen is terrible for me.
Yeah, I think it's worse here in North Carolina, or at least it seems to be ever since I moved here. Been here 12 years, and I don't remember ever complaining about allergies until I moved here.
What's the temperature down there?
It was 80 degrees today.
Wow.
But we've been over the weekend it was in the 60s. Last 2 days it's in the 70s, and then spiking, and I think it's gonna go back down. I think we might have a couple of days of 80s.
Nice.
But it's nice here. I can't complain.
I'm jealous. We are in the 50s. We did touch 70 a couple days ago, but we're in the 50s up here.
Oh, 70s in April in a place like Buffalo or back. I'm from Michigan, so
yeah,
those days were always fantastic. Although you put a little bit of pressure on yourself, right? You think like, oh, I gotta go out and do something, because you don't know if you're. I guess that's one difference living down here is that, when you have that first nice day, like I still have that Michigan mentality, like, oh, I gotta go out and do something. I gotta take advantage of that, and then, I forget my friend Mike McClary, who lives in Arizona. He kind of talked me out of that. He's like, you live in a place that has nicer weather now. You're gonna have other nice days. You could take it easy.
Yeah, I think there is this pressure. I certainly, and when you see it the most, and from your Michigan days, I'm assuming you've had a similar experience. It is January, usually like late January, and you have the rare 60-degree day.
Oh yes.
And it looks like the 4th of July. Like everybody's out, dudes in shorts. It's like, it's like it is a 90-degree day. Like
shorts is 60-degree weather is my favorite. Yeah.
People are just all into it. It changes your like, it's something about being in the deprivation of winter, and then just emerging into this warmth that's just like, oh.
But you just hope somebody doesn't say, "Oh, I wonder if this means winter's over," because it's not.
Yeah. Next week.
Yep. The next day.
Yeah. Sometimes you just get slapped in the face with just like, oh, here's 6 inches of snow. Shoveling time. Should we move on to Draymond?
Okay, yeah. Poor old Draymond Green.
Well, would you like to set this one up, or should I?
Yeah, so Draymond Green, he got suspended. He'll be suspended for game 3 after the incident in game 2 where he stomped on Domantas Sabonis's chest. And I think, well, it also caused kind of a scene after he was ejected, right? Like taunting the fans and not exactly leaving the court quietly. But there's some controversy as to whether or not Green should have been suspended. And then the person in charge of discipline for the NBA saying, well, this is more of a case of Draymond Green is a repeat offender. This is a pattern with him.
You're
right. Many people willing to point out that Joe Dumars was part of the Bad Boys Detroit Pistons and maybe shouldn't be the person having a say on whether or not someone should be suspended for their on-court antics. I don't have a problem with the suspension. How do you feel?
Okay, so are we going with the letter of the law or the spirit of the law?
I get. Wow, that's a great question. Let's say spirit of the law, since it's the playoffs.
Spirit of the law, he's got to be suspended.
Yeah.
Letter of law, no.
Okay.
Because it's clear, it's clear. Sabonis was held his leg.
Yes. And before that, he dragged down Klay Thompson on a rebound and fell to the ground, and that's when he reached out to grab Draymond's leg. But I mean, Draymond could have could have not tried so vigorously to shake himself free or to demonstrably stomp on his chest. I don't know. Is it because this is the playoffs that they made that decision, you think?
I think it's because it's Draymond.
Yeah.
Draymond's got a history. Draymond punched who did he punch in the balls?
Steven Adams?
Yes.
Is that right?
And then there was a LeBron incident in the finals.
Yep. Kicked out with his And
he's known for being demonstrative and collecting technicals. And it's one of those things where it's like if the rules were doled out equally, just by the moment we saw, you don't suspend them. Maybe you fine them, but you don't suspend.
Do you think there's more outrage over him being suspended because the Warriors are down 0-2 against the Kings and losing Draymond for game 3 might, well, I don't know if it ensures they'll lose game 3, but it certainly doesn't help. If the Warriors had a 2-0 lead or if this series was tied 1-1, would people feel differently about that, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
that seemed to be Stephen A. Smith's argument on First Take was that, 1, this is the playoffs, should have let that go. 2, this could end up really affecting the outcome of the series, which is possible.
And the outcome of a dynasty.
outcome of a dynasty. But I also think that's somewhat taken away from how well the Kings are playing.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I mean, they have no answer for De'Aaron Fox, who, I mean, I don't know how many people watch the Kings this season. I mean, maybe if you were keeping an eye on the NBA, you see, wow, Sacramento is really good. But you're right. Yeah, we should probably talk about that. I mean, this very well could be the end of the Warriors dynasty.
And the flagship team for the last, 8 years?
Yeah.
9 years?
Yeah.
And
and people are probably just starting to tune in maybe for the playoffs. If you're more of a casual fan, the first round kind of sneaks up on you, and then what? Oh, the Warriors aren't playing? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Do I keep watching? I don't know anybody on the Sacramento Kings. I mean, I'm not excusing that, but I think that's kind of how the casual fan might think.
Well, I think it's not just that. I think it's not just how the casual fan thinks. So let's talk about the punditocracy.
Okay.
For a moment. I think it's how they think. I think the Warriors are way more interesting than the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure it's much more interesting among the punditocracy on daytime TV, debate TV, to talk about the Warriors and rather than the Kings. Let's say I should get the NBA playoff bracket in front of me, who they would play. But yeah, people say they're sick of seeing the same teams over and over, but I mean, ultimately fans and media love dynasties. You love the familiar faces. You want to see Steph Curry and Clay and Draymond, for better or for worse. You like familiarity. I mean, new is good, is fun, but I mean, geez, look how much. It's a different sport, but how much did the Final Four suffer because we didn't have Duke or Kentucky or North Carolina or even Louisville or somebody like that in the Final Four? And in the NBA, we're used to seeing the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. Maybe not in the finals, but usually in the finals, as you said, over the past 8 years. And then all of a sudden they're gone, especially for a team that most people don't know anything about, that hadn't been in the playoffs for, 17 years?
Yes.
Before that. It's an adjustment, especially, again, if you're approaching this as a casual fan.
And thinking about that punditocracy in these media organizations, it's the casual fans that fill up the ratings books. So they want LeBron and the Warriors to clash at some point. If the Warriors are out of pocket, which it looks likely at this point, I mean, I didn't think they've looked terrible in each game. I thought they looked vulnerable. Is probably a good phrase for it. And they were in a bad matchup. I mean, it just seemed. I think it'll be a long series for sure. But it just looked like they were in a bad matchup.
So if they lose game 3, oof.
Oh, if they lose game 3, I think it's a wrap. Probably done in 5.
So looking at the NBA playoff bracket, if the Warriors lose, we very well would be deprived of a Warriors-Lakers second round series.
And if you're ESPN, if you're TNT, if you're NBA Twitter, if you're any NBA writer, you are begging for that matchup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be so much fun. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, there is some familiarity with the Grizzlies. If the Grizzlies were to advance past the Lakers, although as we're recording tonight, John Morant's not going to play in game 2. Plus, because of his injury, which is another problem in these playoffs, by the way, is stars getting injured.
Sure.
But yeah, to not have Lakers Warriors in that second round, especially when the other matchup in the West could be Nuggets, and I mean Suns Clippers is a great first round matchup.
Sure.
But does Nuggets Suns or Nuggets Clippers? nothing against the T-Wolves, but that certainly doesn't attract the same interest that Warriors Lakers would,
or Warriors Grizzlies even. I mean, just the Ja, yes, is hurt at the moment, but Ja, there are stars in the NBA, and then there are stars, and Ja seems like he is one of those guys that are on that next boat of young stars in the league. De'Aaron Fox and everyone from the Kings at least aren't there yet. Maybe they get there this year. Maybe De'Aaron Fox maybe this is his coming out party.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes that happens, right? The team comes out of nowhere, and we kind of saw that in the bubble a few years ago. Even though the Lakers eventually won it, I mean, it was the Nuggets who kind of emerged as this team, and they've taken a step back. But yeah, we were saying how we don't always like seeing new teams, but the Grizzlies are a great example of a newer team with an up-and-coming star, as you mentioned, an emerging star, who I think is starting to become familiar with. Certainly, they're familiar with NBA fans, but like I keep mentioning the casual fan or the mainstream fan that's checking in. I think the Grizzlies are an example of, yes, a newer team that is ready to emerge, and I think would attract, would create a great matchup, like you said, with the Warriors. But yeah, I mean, if you have a De'Aaron Fox versus Ja Morant, if it worked out that way, I think that could be really good for the sport too, especially if it was a longer series.
On Ja for a moment, as sports fans are aware of, but I'll summarize it quickly. He got in some major trouble a couple of months ago. He was brandishing a firearm on Instagram Live in a club, and among other problems. Do you think that's hurt his star or helped, or both?
Ooh. It certainly helped his notoriety, his profile, but I don't know if that's helped his stardom. If you're saying that's not the type of thing you want to be associated with top stars in the game, I mean, obviously it's just very, very poor judgment by Ja Morant, and what the reaction was to it can be another subject. But I think it's raised his profile, for better or for worse. Though, how do you see it?
I want to parse the notoriety versus stardom. I'm not sure that those are as different as you pose them. When I think of a star isn't necessarily a positive thing. It's sort of essentially just a high level of notoriety. I mean, at least that's how I look at it. Is that how you look at it? How do you look at it?
I guess, I don't know if it's the same thing. I like to apply what I call the mom test to, if my mother has heard of you, you're a star. Okay. And my mom has heard of Ja Morant because of this off the court stuff, not because, he's an amazing dunker and a budding superstar. Okay. So I guess that's the line I would draw between notoriety and stardom. Is why does my mother know who Ja Morant is?
Okay, how many actual stars are in the NBA?
Yeah.
LeBron,
Steph Curry,
Kevin Durant.
Oh, Kevin Durant. Do we put Donovan Mitchell in that category? I don't know if we do.
No. No, not a chance.
So is that it? 3? Or are we forgetting?
I
don't think Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown are in that.
Not yet. Klay Thompson.
Giannis.
Your mom would know Giannis.
Yeah, maybe. because of that Disney Plus movie. No, I think she knows. She does. Yeah, I mean, Jokic isn't really in that category.
Joel
Yeah.
Embiid.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say no. I mean, compared to, I mean, if you're comparing him to LeBron, Steph, and Kevin Durant, I don't know. Does Embiid belong? I mean, obviously he's a star, but is he?
Well,
notoriety. Or are they different? Like you were saying, maybe.
Yeah, I think they're different. I think he doesn't have the. I don't know that he's in the Gen Pop. Like, I don't think my mom would know him. I think my mom would know those other four.
Okay. Yeah. And
I'm struggling to think.
Yeah, I mean, is that just because they've done this for so long that they're just part of the fabric, part of the cultural wallpaper? Or, I mean,
that's part of it. Sure.
Part of it is commercials, of course.
For sure.
Although Joel Embiid has, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this. I would argue Embiid has more commercials than Kevin Durant. But
Durant's been in the league much longer.
Yeah.
He's also been to the height of the league.
He has the association with the Warriors.
And even those Thunder teams were shockingly well remembered and sort of front and center in a way that Embiid isn't quite yet, I would argue.
Yeah. And I don't know, does it also matter that Curry and Durant had standout college careers so people knew who they were before? I know Durant was left early.
More for Curry than Durant.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Durant, I mean, Texas didn't go far in the NCAA tournament, but I do remember him clearly from Texas.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I mean, and it comes up every time Tennessee loses, right? Rick Barnes, he had Kevin Durant and he couldn't win with him. So how's he going to win with Tennessee?
Sure. I don't think.
So is that's?
I think that's the list.
Bad, right? That Trae Young. There's another guy we didn't mention, but no. Yeah,
Luka.
I agree. So maybe Luka? 3 guys, maybe Luka? 4.
Luka.
Ooh.
Kyrie Irving.
Definitely. Kyrie, definitely notoriety.
He's definitely, I think he's a star. I think he would have to be on the list.
Yeah.
I think he's got the mix of both.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, let's explore this a bit more. We have stardom and we have notoriety.
Yeah.
Right.
So to go back to the mom test, mom knows who Kyrie Irving is because of the anti-Semitic remarks, probably. I mean, I could come in and if she brings him up and it's, he's a fantastic basketball player, mom, whatever people are saying about him. I mean, there's a reason people talk about him that much because he's really, really good. And he played with LeBron and famously wanted to get away from LeBron and is kind of seems like steadily affected his career by wanting to move. Yeah, you're right. Kyrie should maybe be on that list, although maybe
would he be 5th?
Yeah. Because he hasn't. I mean, maybe you put Durant in this category too, but Kyrie's been very disappointing in terms of. I mean, he's a spectacular player, but did he elevate the Celtics? Did he elevate the Nets? It appears to have hurt the Mavericks this season too. So, I mean, that definitely has him a rung below. Yeah, like you said, 5th. Luka is a really good question because he is a star, right? I mean, he's a one name Madonna, Cher, or whatever, Luca. And he's so fun to watch, but yeah, I don't know. He hasn't broken through maybe to that ascendant stardom. I don't want to keep saying the mom test. Mom doesn't know who Luka Doncic is, but she should. I'll do what I can to educate her.
And he also has one quality that we have not mentioned. He's white. He's white.
I was going to say, is it one that he shares with Nikola Jokic?
Yeah. I do think in some ways that helps him in terms of his star power potential. In terms of where his ceiling is, I would agree he's not quite there yet. A deep playoff run, if he carries the Mavericks to the finals, like I could see him just exploding in a way that we haven't seen anyone explode in since Steph Curry.
Yeah. And the race question is a really good one because it's come up in this MVP race, right?
Notably on TV a lot.
Yeah, on TV a lot. He's definitely a face. There's a reason the Mavericks get these national TV games or they play on Christmas because of one guy they're going to show. So and like you said, he is in one way he is not like the others.
Yeah, one of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. I think we have a short list of 4 or 5 just true blue stars, and then maybe a list of 10 quite possible maybes and guys who may have missed their shot.
This is making me think. I don't know if we want to go this way or move on, but
let's keep going.
Like, I mean, I assume we both kind of grew up in the NBA in the 80s, and were there more stars then? I mean, guys like you would put in posters on your room. I mean, Dominique Wilkins. Because Dominique Wilkins is kind of like one of those players we're talking about, right? Like he wasn't Bird, Magic, Jordan. Maybe he was a 5th or 6th guy. Were there more? Yeah, probably not.
So if we're talking 80s,
yeah.
Okay, so I think you had Magic and Larry, right, in their own category. Michael just below them. Probably Kareem late stage in that group as well.
Yep.
Young Barkley probably a step below. Young Ewing a step below. I'm trying to think of people who would have been in that upper echelon. I mean, the Dr. J was toward the end of his career at that point.
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas.
I don't know. I don't think Mark Aguirre or any of those Mavericks were.
Not quite.
No.
Yeah, I don't. My gut, it says that there were not more stars in the 80s or 90s.
Okay. I mean, and that's like a weird question too, because obviously I am not the sort of fan who goes to anymore who, goes to Foot Locker or the record store or whatever and thinks it would be really, I want this poster of Dominique Wilkins on my wall because that's such a great poster dunk.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably similar, isn't it?
Because if I go and I look at the 90s, so you had Michael who ascended, with a bullet, no one close. And then you had this group of maybe 4 or 5 other guys. Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yep. The aforementioned Clyde Drexler.
Do
we still put Barkley in that group?
Yeah. Yeah. In the 90s, sure. At least for half the decade. And you could argue that his star grew as he headed toward retirement. Even before he got to TV. Reggie Miller would be whether he's in that group or he's at least close.
Yeah. Played for championships. So
for sure. I mean, Sean Kemp was a giant star.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, even
David
toward
Robinson.
the end of the
is that 90s?
Oh, Big Dog.
Oh, Glenn Robinson. Yeah, Glenn
you
Robinson.
Mean David Robinson.
David Robinson, yeah.
Yeah, well, David Robinson's an interesting character because I don't know that I call him a star. He was certainly one of the greatest ever, but like I wouldn't call him a star.
Nah, I think you're right. I mean, I remember when he first came into the league and the highlights were unbelievable, but you're right. And of course he did not ascend, become a championship player until Tim Duncan came along.
Sure. We left out Shaq.
Oh, Shaq's mad.
And then an early stage Kobe.
Yep.
And then if you get into the 2000s, it's Shaq, it's prime Kobe. Tim Duncan's kind of in that David Robinson category. Even though he was a champion, he's won, I think, was it 5 rings? 4 or 5 rings.
Yeah.
But like he didn't have what Sean Kemp had at one point or what Vince Carter had at one point or Tracy McGrady.
I don't know. The 2000s, that may have been, maybe they had 2 of the brightest stars, but did they have the depth in the 2000s?
I don't think
I'm really having trouble thinking of somebody else.
It was LeBron.
Okay, yeah, LeBron.
Young LeBron.
Yeah,
and
LeBron
watching
emerging.
And I mean, remember the
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade emerged toward the middle of the decade.
Yep.
You had Jason Kidd toward the end.
Yep.
I think we're seeing. I think in most sports there's a similar hierarchy where there is one guy or a small group of guys, especially in the NBA.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we talked about the NFL, we'd probably have a really similar discussion, right?
I think
Mahomes, Allen. I mean,
Joe Burrow,
Rodgers and Brady. I mean, just on name value, but not.
Yeah.
They're a rung below now. No, yeah, you're right. Very similar.
And then even Herbert, as great as Herbert has been so far, is kind of a little far to the back. Maybe because it's just not as exciting to watch as Mahomes or an Allen or even Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And probably
put Jalen Hurts. Yeah.
He could crack it. I think he's got to do it for more than 1 year.
Right. Yeah, he has to put together like a 2-3 year run at least.
What do you think of that contract, though? He got the largest deal in the history of the NFL. Most guaranteed money.
Man, I do not. After, like you said, it's really just been one emergent season. I mean, there was kind of a question as to whether or not the Eagles wanted to go with Hurts, right? And there have been rumblings that's what cost Doug Peterson his job, maybe with the Eagles. I will say though, other than Mahomes and Allen, I think Hurts. I mean, he doesn't have the star power yet of those other two, but if you talk about the quarterbacks who are potentially the most unstoppable in terms of they can get it done with their arm, but if you cover all the receivers, they can run and get first downs that way and kill a defense. I mean, I think Hurts is really good in that category. He might even be better than Mahomes now. I mean, it might be in terms of that type of quarterback, it might be Allen and Hurts. But wow, I would not have foreseen him getting a contract like that this early.
Because you say Allen and Hurts because of their combination of their ability to run in their passing efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I think I tend to agree with that, because when I think of Mahomes, I think of him as more elusive, just hard to tackle, and he throws the ball away, or he finds a guy at last moment.
Mm-hmm. Or just somehow scrambles for that 10 yards.
Yeah.
But for the first down. But yeah, Hurts and Allen, I mean, they are weapons as runners as well.
Yeah.
Especially at the goal line.
Yeah. Especially at the goal line. Yeah, absolutely.
Allen's much bigger.
Yeah.
So that probably gives him the edge.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 6'5", and like almost 240.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a tight end playing quarterback.
And Hurts is barely 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
But I would guess about 200 pounds, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think those two, in terms of ability to run, elusiveness combined with passing, I think. Yeah.
Well, I gotta bring up Lamar on both notes. I mean, A, where does he fit into that equation? And B, what do you think he's thinking about his contract? For those who don't know, and I would imagine just about anyone who's still listening to us right now will probably know this, but Lamar is negotiating his contract with his mom as his agent.
Not having an agent, and I think actually this is one thing I don't know about the Hurts contract. How much of that was guaranteed? Because I think that's one reason why Lamar Jackson doesn't have a contract now. It
was the highest guarantee in the history of football.
Wow. Okay. So higher than Deshaun Watson. Actually, higher is the wrong way of putting it, because all of Deshaun's contract.
Okay. Yeah. Right? Yeah, you're right. I misspoke. It was the highest guarantee aside from Deshaun Watson. Let me bring up Jalen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
255 million is the total. I think it can go up another 20 million if he hits certain escalators.
Okay. And
it's 179 million in total guarantees.
Okay.
Including 110 fully guaranteed at signing. And by next league year, meaning March 2024, 125 million will be fully guaranteed at that point. And he has a no trade clause as well, which blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's changed in the NFL. I mean, originally you didn't trade quarterbacks, but how much of, I have to look up here, how much of Watson's contract is guaranteed? Bear with me here, but no, you're right. Did I overlook Lamar Jackson there?
I don't know that you overlooked the
comparison.
I wouldn't say you did. I mean, when I look at consistent passing stats, I look at Hurts and I look at Allen, and they're more impressive as passers. Also, he's in a system, or has been in a system. Obviously, there's a new offensive coordinator coming in now, Todd Monken from Georgia.
Right.
So he'll be in a different system if he goes back to the Ravens. But the system that they've been running, which is basically Lamar ball, is not putting him into position to succeed as a passer.
Yeah, I mean, my first reflex was to say Lamar is not the passer that Allen or Mahomes is, even Hurts. But to be fair, the Ravens receivers are not good.
Yeah.
He's got Mark Andrews, and
who's amazing. But
he's amazing, yes. But in terms at wide receiver for a team for a playoff contender. They just don't. First of all, they don't invest much money in the wide receiver position. So, I mean, is it fair to say Lamar's not as good a passer because he just doesn't have the same talent? He's not throwing to the same talent that those other quarterbacks are?
Probably not fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he doesn't have a Steph Diggs. He doesn't have A.J. Brown.
Right.
I don't think he has a Devonta Smith, or even does he even have a Gabe Davis? I'm not. I don't know that he does. I know they brought in OBJ, and they totally overpaid for him.
Yes,
but, $15 million for a guy who had 2 ACL tears in 2 consecutive years.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems insane.
Yeah, is that to appease Lamar? See, we got you some help.
That's what's on the rumor mill. The rumor mill was he said he said, bring me OBJ and bring me Hopkins, and we'll talk. And the Ravens apparently told him that this is rumored that they couldn't afford both. Which
I didn't know that. I would have said they should trade for Hopkins, but
yeah, I would have taken Hopkins first too. I mean,
I don't know what the Cardinals were asking for in return, but I don't think they would have had to give up like a first or even a second.
And they also, I don't think he wants to go there. I mean, if you hear the rumor, he wants the Chiefs, he wants the Bills.
Oh man, if he went to the Bills, oh my goodness,
that'd be crazy. I'd be cheering.
Diggs and Hopkins, oh.
And I mean, him next to Travis Kelce would be crazy. I'd be afraid.
Does the Chiefs? I mean, obviously they have Kelce. I mean, they do have good. Well, I shouldn't say, because they had Tyreek Hill until this past season. I was going to say Mahomes hasn't necessarily had top shelf receivers either, especially once they traded Tyreek Hill.
Well, they traded him a year ago. I mean, and they won the Super Bowl that year. So
they won the Super Bowl. So yeah. Although what the Chiefs had is still better than what the Ravens had.
Yeah, I mean Juju and Mecole Hardman.
All right. So put a bow on this. Should we include Lamar in there? Did I overlook him?
I think he's a step behind.
Okay.
I think I've yet to see him be forced into being a pocket passer and shred a defense.
Yeah.
I've seen Jalen Hurts do that. Mm-hmm. I've seen Josh Allen do that. I've seen Pat Mahomes do that. I've seen
Joe
Burrow,
Herbert.
Yeah. All those top shelf guys have done that. I haven't seen Lamar do that. I've seen Lamar pass for a lot of yards when he's been, booed out and sort of he's moving around and making things happen. But I wouldn't trust him taking apart a defense from the pocket, at least not yet. It's not that he can't. I just don't think they haven't put him in the position.
Yeah, we don't know
where he could.
Can. We just haven't seen him do it. So is he Donovan Mitchell or Luka Doncic in our NBA comparison there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think
you're right. It's similar across sports. Yeah.
Well,
in terms of star,
if we're talking about star, no. I think as a star, he's in that category with. And as a star, he might be a bigger star than Josh Allen.
Ooh.
And I say that as a crazy Bills fan. I mean, he might be a bigger star than Josh Allen.
Ooh, that is intriguing.
I mean, if we're talking about straight up star power, it's Pat Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. Is it still Aaron Rodgers? I mean,
probably.
Tom Brady.
Brady's retired.
Yeah, but he's you're right. He's retired. So I was gonna say he's still a star, but
yeah, it would be. It would be Mahomes, Rodgers, and I'm just looking around the league. Talk about star power.
Yeah. Dak
Dak is
Prescott?
up there. He's up there, and it's not because of his play. It's because he's a really, really good quarterback of the biggest brand in all of football.
And he has commercials.
Yeah, tons of them.
Yeah.
Allen's not quite there yet. He's approaching it. He's starting to get, he's got Gillette, and he's piling on the ads. From what I understand, he filmed a bunch. At least that's the rumor mill, is that he filmed a ton so far this offseason. I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah.
And Lamar's been an MVP of the league.
So Allen actually has higher to go, because if he gets all these commercials, like you say, he's going to break through even more, even higher.
I think so. I think there's more in terms of just pure notoriety in star power. I think Allen is probably in that next group still, probably with Hurts.
Should we talk NFL draft, or do we have time? I know we've been going on for a while here.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I think you asked a very good question when we were trading messages back and forth.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're a Lions fan, right?
Yeah.
I'm a Bills fan. And my guess is your timeline, like my timeline, has been flooded with mock drafts.
Absolutely. And I seek them out, especially early on. I have tried to avoid them in the last couple of weeks. I can't stand it anymore. But at first, yeah, I want to know. I mean, Detroit's got 2 first rounders. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited. But like you asked, what's the appeal? You were talking about the mock drafts?
Well, I'm talking about both the NFL draft and mock drafts. I mean, what if you back away? Just releasing my football fandom and just speaking about this as purely media content. All right, what are we doing? We're literally listing the possibilities of hires.
Yeah,
of 32 teams.
I mean, part of it is just the appetite for football, right? I mean, we just can't get enough, even when they're not playing. We still love talking about it. I mean, I think the 2 most popular sports in this country are the NFL and college football. And the draft is kind of the combination of the 2. You know, it's affirmation that Bryce Young was the best player we saw in college football, and he will probably could be the number 1 pick. It probably will be top 2. So there's that carryover. I mean, there are fans who are just college football fans or fans who are just NFL fans. So it's not like this perfect Venn diagram. I understand, but, yeah, the appeal of it, I think part of it is I'm going to say this, and it's probably not going to come out right. It's going to sound like I'm ripping people, and I really don't mean to. But everybody thinks they're a draft expert, right? Or not everybody, but most people do. Like, even, and I am not. I mean, so much credit goes to people who have made careers out of becoming draft experts.
Right,
right. I tip my cap. I envy them. I think, geez, I wish I'd have thought of that. But, you know, like you said, your timeline, my timeline is full of people who are just armchair draft experts. Do we know? I mean, people say, yeah, you know, I watched his tape. I watched Tyree Wilson's tape, so I know he's going to be a good edge rusher. I mean, no, you watched his tape, or you just watched his games like I did? I mean, I don't claim that I watched Bryce Young's tape. I just watched Alabama every week. But yeah, I don't know. I think everybody thinks they're a draft expert in some way. I think that's a big part of the appeal.
I think it's it's a combination of that, like of thinking you're the expert, and I think just have you gone to the draft machines?
No.
Where you go to like PFF has one, Pro Football Focus, where you can all the players who are listed in the draft are in there, and you simulate the draft, and I'm drafting as the Buffalo Bills, so I'm waiting to pick 27, or I have the option to trade up, and it's I think it's a bunch of grown men who
it's a form of fantasy, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's certainly it. It's fantasy.
Can you trade up in these draft machines?
Some do, yeah. Some you can. You can trade up, trade down.
That drives me crazy in the mock drafts, though. I mean, I understand there will be trades, so you can't just go by the regular draft order. But to me, that just adds a whole other level of speculation. That now some people, Mel Kiper or Daniel Jeremiah, or like they probably know. I mean, I'm sure they've talked to people, so they think there's a strong chance that somebody could make a trade with the Cardinals at number 3.
Absolutely.
So it's not just pulling it out of their butt to say, okay, that a trade has been made, or we're going to say the Lions trade up to 3, unless they actually have sources or people they talk to who think that's going to happen. But I don't know why. It drives me crazy when I see trades in mock drafts, because I just think, you don't know. I mean, I guess we don't know anything. We don't know who's going to be picked, et cetera, but that drives me crazy.
Well, and I think the other chunk of people on the timeline, just us in fantasy land. I'm certainly in fantasy land whenever I indulge in this. And I do think there are people who do work hard at this.
Absolutely. That's why I said I don't want to make it sound like I'm ripping people who became draft experts. That they know they put in the time.
Absolutely. Like there are guys like Joe Marino is a guy I watch a lot. I watch, I listen to a couple of his podcasts. He does a Bills podcast and he does a draft podcast, and I listen to him not all the time, but regularly. And there are lots of guys who really do, like, it's a cottage industry of creating this content, and
Absolutely.
And it's I guess it just gets back to your point that it just being us lusting for football all the time.
And you want to be, everyone wants to seem like they know what they're talking about, wants to be smart, like, oh yeah, I knew Will Anderson would drop, or I mean, there is some drama too, just to the draft itself. Who's going to be number 1? How much is Jalen Carter going to drop? I think that's going to be a very compelling story, especially when you have teams like Seattle and Detroit who clearly need him. Jalen Carter would be a great fit for either of those two. But if they pass on him, then that's obviously a sign that they think his character issues are a major concern. Who's going to be the guy who we thought was a low first round pick and he's in the top 10, or there's all sorts of intrigue. I know, like you said, we're basically just watching people getting hired, which, there's really not that much action, but I mean, ESPN, NFL Network, ABC, they do a great job of creating that drama and giving us the storylines and so forth. But yeah, you're ultimately, I think you're right. It is something to satisfy our appetite for football when we haven't had it for 4 or 5 months.
I think the broadcast is something that I'd like to put a pin into it, and hopefully the next time we chat, we can talk about it more. Because I think, just to give a preview of my point of view, I think that's arguably the hardest job in sports broadcasting.
Ooh, man. I would say right now, geez, can I steal that for a column? Because that might,
Please do.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
I will give you credit. I will make sure I give you credit. That is a great point. Yeah, because that is a lot of time to fill, and you're spinning a lot of plates. Anything can happen in trades.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just
falling.
3 days.
Yeah,
a ton of names you don't know.
That always amazes me when they do know, like, especially when you get. I don't know they're fed things from the truck and experts and stuff, but like, there's going to be that guy, maybe even in the first round or the second round. You're like, who? And they got everything on him.
Mm-hmm. Cole Strange, remember him?
Yes.
No one thought this guy was a first round pick, and the Patriots picked him, and he's turned out to be a pretty good player.
Sean McVay and Les Snead were laughing about it.
Yeah.
During their press conference. Man, that is a great point, James. Yeah, it could be the hardest. Are you more of an NFL? Are you more of an ESPN or NFL Network guy when you watch the draft?
NFL Network.
Okay.
Are you more ESPN or NFL Network?
I always say I'm going to watch NFL Network, but I somehow find my way back on ESPN. I don't know if that's because I feel like that's the broadcast more people are watching or talking about.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Or maybe I'm a little more familiar with those names. But
yeah, and Kuiper's hair just can't get away. You can't look away.
Yeah. Although, yeah, I have grown to like NFL Network as well. Daniel Jeremiah might be my favorite.
Yeah.
Draft expert. Yeah. When we circle back and talk about this, I'll have to make a note of which one I watch more.
Yeah. And let's next time around, let's come up with the 5 toughest jobs in broadcasting, in sports broadcasting.
Toughest jobs in broadcasting. I love it.
Yeah. So Ian Casselberry, Barrett Sports Media, plug away anything you'd like.
I did mention that possum in the Oakland A's visitors TV booth this week. That is my column at Barrett Sports Media. I appreciate all the feedback we've gotten on that. It's a funny topic, but it's also, I think it's a sad commentary on the Oakland Athletics. Every Tuesday, my column at Barrett Sports Media goes up. Appreciate that.
Well, can't wait to have you back. We'll fight and joust about who has the worst job in sports broadcasting.
Oh, I can't wait. That's such a great idea. But thank you for inviting me on, James. I hope I sound better this time.
Oh, yeah, you sound fantastic, my man.
Okay. I felt bad about that when I was listening. I'm like,
no worries.
All right. Thanks so much. And I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I feel much better.
All right.
Be well.
You too. Thank you.